acceptance and commitment with therapy, third ACT days, and it's online this year because of the pandemic. So we feel excited to be able to take a spot and talking about OPV, online Photovoice in research, which is a quite new and collaborative study, a method. So we are gonna give space to our speakers to do self-introduction, or I can do for them as well if they are not here. So if Kavita is here, is she here, Kavita? I don't think she's here. So let me introduce Kavita. Kavita Batra, she is holding a PhD and she's working in the United States at the Korkmaz School of Medicine at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And she's working at Office of Research. And if you want to get to know more about her, you can click on here. We can share the PowerPoint with you later. And you can go to her ResearchGate, or you can go to her Google Scholar account as well. So Professor Naved is here. Professor Naved, you want to talk about yourself?
I'm Naved Iqbal. I teach in the Department of Psychology, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi, since 1994. So it means I have over 27 years of teaching experience. Wow. And since 2009, I have been full professor. My area of interest is health psychology, clinical psychology, and Islamic psychology.
Thank you so much. And Tahani, do you want to talk about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tahani Dari, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of Toledo, and I started there in 2017. Areas of specialties, community-based participatory research, and highlighting and working with marginalized youth.
And if you want to get to know more about Tahani, you can reach her through her email, or you can look at her ResearchGate account and get to know her research and reach out to her through that as well. And I think Ozan just joined. Ozan, do you want to talk about yourself, where you are working, what you are doing in terms of research, etc.? Ozan, can you hear us?
Hocam, Türkçe konuşacağım ama.
Sounds good. You can speak in Turkish and we can translate if there's anything different from the screen.
Tamam hocam. Sesim geliyor mu hocam?
Evet, Ozan hocam kendinizi tanıtabilirsiniz.
Ekranda da görüldüğü gibi ben psikolojik danışma ve rehberlik uygulama araştırma merkezinde öğretim görevlisi olarak çalışıyorum. Aynı zamanda psikolojik danışmanlık bölümünde de doktoramı bitirmek üzereyim. Bu şekilde hocam. Sizinle bir arada bulunmaktan dolayı da mutluyum. Herkese selamlar.
Aleykümselam. Thank you so much. And if you want to get to know more about Ozan, you can use his email, or you can reach out to his research from his ResearchGate account or his Google Scholar account as well. Thank you so much. And Nazlı, do you want to talk about yourself?
Merhabalar herkese. Nazlı Özkan ben. Master'ımı klinik psikoloji üzerine yaptım ve şu an Milli Eğitim Bakanlığı için çalışıyorum. Umarım keyifli bir sunum olacak.
Nazlı is working at Ministry of Education, also working and doing research with us as psychological counselor at a clinic at Adıyaman University, where I'm conducting the research under our clinic. So we are collaborating with her and with other researchers as well, to be honest. Yeah. And Emel, is she here? I think Emel is not here. So Emel, she got her master and PhD in United States, and she's focusing on marriage and family therapy. She's working as assistant professor at Batra University at the Department of Psychology. And if you have any questions, you can use her email or ResearchGate account or Google Scholar account. And we just got Kavita. Kavita, do you want to talk about yourself or briefly introduce yourself about your research?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Kavita Batra. I'm from Office of Research, Korean School of Medicine at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. My research interest revolves around global health, and I have published several articles related to psychosocial impact of COVID-19 among different demographic groups, including students, general population, and healthcare workers. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. And if I briefly talk about myself, I got my BS Bachelor of Science in Counseling in Turkey and my Master of Science at University of Rochester, New York, and my PhD at UNCG, the University of North Carolina, Greensboro in the United States. So I think this is all. Then we can move forward. And for our speakers, we are having a broadcasting. So as speakers, we are on Zoom and the others are watching us from the website for your information. Okay. And we really want to take a moment to attend ourselves, since this is acceptance and commitment therapy. And even it's not an acceptance and commitment therapy or not a conference on therapy, mental health. In general, I'm taking a few moments to really be mindful with what we are going to talk about. So I love this poem from Rumi. Anyone want to read from us? If you have read before or if you are willing to. Otherwise, I'm going to read. Okay, so the guest house. And you know, we are using this poem in ACT therapy very often. And it is mentioned so many times in ACT practices and ACT main books as well. So in this poem, Rumi is talking about this being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and attend them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. They may be preparing you for some new delight, the dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door and acknowledge and invite them in. Be open for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Okay, so we send this as a gift to our speakers and to our attendees as well, because it's a really powerful poem that many ACT therapists use and many other people use. And it's very, very well known in the United States. Okay, so today we are going to talk about OPV as a research methodology. And so the flow presentation, we are going to talk about OPV, what it means, OPV examples, and how to participate, and how to do OIPA, online interpretative phenological analysis, to analyze the data, OPV's advantages, and our main references, and then we are going to leave. And if you really if you want to get more about OPV, we have prepared 2 main videos, and they are provided on YouTube. If you just write online Photovoice and or Ahmet Tanhan OPV, then you are going to come across 2 main OPV videos, and they are free. They are open to all. And also under the video, you can see the description section, and there you can see just the online audio recording down the road if you need to just listen, or if somebody has some visual issues, or if somebody has if they have really limited internet. And we also are providing the PowerPoint version of this presentation. So if you are a researcher, or if you are an educator, or if you are organizing something like that, and you want to have already a set PowerPoint, then you can go to that video, and then if you click the description, then we are providing a link that you can download the PowerPoint. Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, so what is online Photovoice? Who have developed OPV? Any of the speaker want to talk about this?
Hocam ben anlatacaktım ama
Yeah, please, Ozan hocam.
Türkçe devam edeceğim, simultane devam ediyor. Tamam. Online sesli foto OPV Wenk ve Buris tarafından geleneksel 8-13 kişilik gruplar üzerinde sesli foto geliştiriliyor ve daha çok yüz yüze kullanılıyor. Bu geleneksel bildiğimiz sesli foto yöntemi. 2015'te naçizane siz hocam ve hocanız Robert Streck sesli fotoyu daha da geliştiriyor ve farklı kitlelere ve daha uygun koşullarda online olarak ulaşmak amacıyla bireyin yaşamını kolaylaştıran ve zorlaştıran faktörleri anlamak, olayları ele almak ve bireyin genel iyilik halini artırmak amacıyla online sesli fotoyu geliştiriyorlar. 2020'de İngilizce ve Türkçe olmak üzere pek çok araştırmada online sesli foto kullanılmaya başlanıyor. İlk olarak ekranda da görüldüğü gibi Current Psychology'de ve Türkçe'de buradan Türkçe'de 2 tane göstermişsiniz ama hocam sanırım bilebildiğim kadarıyla daha da fazla çalışmalar bu süreçte Türkçe'de yaygınlaşmaya başladı. Burada online sesli foto bize bireyin iyi oluşunu artırmak, biyopsikososyal, manevi ve ekonomik sorunları ele almak için güzel bir fırsat sunuyor. Özellikle pandemi, savaş veya doğal afetler karşısında yüz yüze görüşmenin zor olduğu durumlarda çok daha pratik ve kritik bir katkı sağlıyor. Araştırmacıların özellikle çevrim içi yorumlayıcı fenomenolojik analizi de kullanılarak katılımcıların sesini daha çok sağlam bir şekilde korumasını sağlıyor. OSF'nin amaçlarına baktığımızda ise insanların hayatındaki en önemli kolaylaştırıcıyı, destek, güç ve engelleri, endişe, sorun, bu gibi faktörleri yenilikçi ve yaratıcı bir şekilde benzersiz bakış açılarından, yani bireyin benzersiz bakış açısını koruyarak anlamayı sağlıyor. Kolaylaştırıcı ve zorlaştırıcı faktörleri gönüllü katılımcı ve paydaşlarla birlikte analiz ettikten sonra analiz sonuçlarını gerçek veya sanal ortam etkinliği, rapor, makale, sempozyum ve sanal medya gibi yollarla gönüllü katılımcı ve paydaşlarla beraber ilgili ve yetkili kişi ve kurum ve kuruluşlarla paylaşmayı amaçlıyor. Özetle birey, grup veya toplum düzeyinde genel iyilik halinin artırılması ve var olan konuların en etkili şekilde ele alınması ve çözülmesi için nitel araştırma yöntem teknikler arasında yer alan OSF'nin oldukça etkili olduğunu söyleyebiliriz. Bu şekilde hocam. Rica ederim.
So here I can share an OPV example, a voice of a participant, so that you can really understand this new methodology. So our research question for this study was, what have been the most important facilitator support and barrier concern for you and or your community during COVID-19? So this was our question, which we have adapted OPV to Turkish. And it's already published. So in step 1, the participant reflect and write all the facilitators and decide. So for example, the participant has written nature, village, trees, farming, family, animals, internet, computer. Here we are talking about a kind of a free association. In step 2, they are focusing only on one or just a few most important, so that we can really focus on the most important factor of the facilitator. So in step 2, take a photo represents the most important facilitator for you. you have decided in step 1. So you can see they have taken a photo. And in step 3, they are writing a caption. And they are following SHORT acronym. And soon we are gonna talk about the SHORT acronym, what it stands for. And so if we are reading their story, we can say their story is, it says, in this photo, you see my pigeons. I had to leave the city and go to my village.
It's 17 hours.
When my pigeons fly, I feel as if I fly into the profound sky. As they rise, I feel as if I rise. There are many factors that facilitate my life, and I do not want to focus on my life at the village and my animals, meaning my pigeons. Sorry, there are many factors that facilitate my life, and I do want to focus on my life at the village and my animals, meaning my pigeons. So we don't play with the voice, the story of the participant to really go with what in OPB we say, to protect their voice and to protect the context in it. As a college student, I believe we got too far away from nature to the point that we have forgotten we are human beings and need to live with nature. I feel happy when I spend time with my pigeons and other animals my family own. There are many beautiful things in the village, such as animals, nature, organic products, fresh air, cheap and even free water and rent. Few problems, less crowd and less noise. However, there are some issues as well. For example, internet is very limited because I'm using from my cell phone. Universities and administrations can address these issues so that more people can live at the villages and the virus will spread less. People will feel more happy and healthy. So in step 3, we can see the participant has shared their voices and we have protected their writing and their story and their voice. And as you can see, it's really very rich. Not all participants, not all stories are so rich. That's the reason that we have chosen this one to be representative. And in step 4, identify at least 1, at most 3 key metaphors for the photo and caption. So now we are in step 4, we are asking to give us a theme, a metaphor, or a few keywords. So they have provided nature, animals, village, healthy life. Okay. So if we read another story from a barrier perspective, so in this study, as you remember, we said we have asked facilitator and the barrier. So here they have provided in step 1, free association. What comes to their mind when we say the most important barrier? Economic difficulties, internet and not having a computer, course pressure, professors being mean and being minded. And in step 2, they have shared this photo, focusing on the most important one. And in step 3, we can see their story. In this photo, you can see the main board of a computer. I took this photo from internet with my cell phone. It's pretty complex, very similar to my case. I do not have a computer, even not a desktop. When I express this, many people do not believe, and indeed, I do not have. And if I had it, it would have not been very different because we do not have internet at the village. We had very old computers at the university, yet we were able to manage. If I were not with my family and spent time with the animals, I would have gone crazy, not because of Corona, but due to having limited internet through my cell phone and suffering till I use it. Lack of internet, economic difficulties, insufficient infrastructure, though it is rare power cutoff, and similar issues seem unimportant, but they lead one to get away from one's courses and education. We had thoughtful professors and yet also very mean-minded ones whom I think do not know what life means. I do not believe my diploma will help me to get a job in this country, means Turkey. I believe I want to settle in the village, set a ranch, and take care of the animals. I believe researchers and authorities can address these issues in the villages. People dealing with poverty should be considered. In step 4, we can see the most important theme, the words or the main themes, metaphors. So economic difficulties, internet and not having a computer, course pressure, professor being mean-minded. Okay. So now it's kind of maybe a little more explained to the ones who do not have any idea about what OPV means and how we are getting their perspective, their experiences through these two participants' voices. So now we are going to talk a little more about the details, how we are focusing on the facilitators and barriers and analysis. Any of us want to talk about the most important facilitators?
Yes.
Okay.
So as it is clear from the presentation of Ahmed, that in this method, we ask participants to identify some facilitator as well as barriers. It can be related to any topic. So we have been also trying to explore important facilitator of mental health during pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic. So if I take that concrete example, so we can ask the participants that you identify some important facilitators which come to your mind. Sometimes what happens, participants may not be aware that which is most important. So what we usually do here, we ask the participant to take note all the facilitators that come to your mind, either in electronic tool or on a piece of paper. We also ask them to reflect mindfully on each of the facilitators to decide the most important one, because it often happens that some participants are not aware that which is the most important facilitators. So this exercise will help them in knowing which is the most important facilitator. So in the next step, participants are being asked to focus only on the most important facilitator. So in this, after we ask them to focus on one important facilitator, we ask them to take different photos of that. So now we can take many photos representing the most important facilitators. Now participants can also be asked to take some time to reflect on each photo to decide which one represents the facilitator the best in a meaningful way. It is totally up to the experience or reflection of the participants' thought, perception, or experience to decide which one represents the facilitator the most in a meaningful way. Because here there may be individual differences. So therefore we ask the participant to identify the photo which reflect the experience. The photos does not have to explicitly represent the facilitator. Sometimes what happens, a given photo may not necessarily represent the whole experience, but it's still the best photo which represent that facilitator. To respect people, protect anonymity, and follow ethical principles, it is the best we do not include people's face and private property in your photo that can be recognized, because it's mainly due to the ethical guidelines. Mm-hmm. If a participant includes such private photos, the researcher or event organizer most probably will edit the photos for anonymity, covering the faces. We also ask the participant to keep a copy of photos electronically so that it can be useful in case there is some loss. Next slide, please. Now we ask the participant to submit the photos and write the caption and write the short story. Writing a caption, meaning a story about your photo, will enable others to see the photo from your own perspective, rather than thinking and assuming something very different from what you want to convey, because it often happens. Participants give his or her story or photo from his perspective. And those who are analyzing it, they may have different perspectives. So therefore, participants are asked to do this exercise. Next, your photo by itself has a great value. As we say, picture is worth 1,000 words. However, it is your caption story that makes the photo even richer and more meaningful to convey your message. It is more effective if we do not use private names to protect anonymity and others. effective. So we also ask the participants to follow a short questions that is more likely that others will get your message and voice in the way you want it rather than something too far away from what you intended. In this way, they will be more likely to contribute to the process of addressing the issues and a more livable world for all. Next slide, please. So once a participant submit photo, they are recommended to follow short acronym to make their story meaning caption for most important facilitators more effective, meaningful, powerful, and comprehensive as a whole, rather than writing separate sentences for each letter, because there are 6 different letters in this acronym. They represent 6 different aspects. So first is, we ask, what do you see in the picture as representative of the facilitator, support strength, for you as part of your life in the context of the subject addressed in the research. The context can be any, but the example which I have used, it was the mental health, facilitators of mental health during COVID-19 pandemic. Next is, what is happening in the picture you have taken. So we ask them to briefly describe the picture. How does that relate to our life as a person or community? Next is W. What is that contributes or creates the facilitator, support, or strength? E. What did you experience? Feelings, thoughts, sensations, behaviors when you took the photo and when you wrote the caption and then submitted the photo. D. What can we mental health professionals, peers, university and all do about it? So you can get a more meaningful and whole story if you strive to write it as a whole paragraph to include all short rather than writing separate sentences. Because it's experience, if participant writes separately about these 6 acronyms, or about these six different letters, which is the part of acronym, it does not make sense. So usually it is advised to them to write them in a meaningful paragraph. So writing your story on electronic tools or a piece of paper to refine it before submitting, and also keeping a copy of your story electronically can be very helpful in case you face some issues and lose your story. It is also recommended by Tanhan and Streck 2000. So there is a step 4, identifying at least 1, at most 3 theme or metaphor. Here, participants reflect on the facilitator, photo and story, and come with at least 1, at most 3 themes or metaphors. Try to stay at most with 10 words in total at this step. You can start writing the most comprehensive theme or metaphor first. Your theme or metaphor enables others to grasp your photo and story in a more meaningful and effective way for a longer time. Your theme or metaphor facilitates others conveying your facilitator story and intended messages to others. This is the step 4. Step 5 can also be used in this research, because here there are specific questions to the research. The researcher may ask you some specific questions based on the OPV research or activity being conducted. Check if you have any questions. Ask you if you would like to volunteer to become a partner or ally for the research process. Provide information about exhibition with a contextually humble community dinner event. End the paragraph at the 4th and skip the 5th step. For example, in 5th step, Tanhan 2020 asked the participants how they attribute the facilitator support strength to 1 or more levels of ecological system theory. Because in this theory, it can be clubbed under individual, intrapsychic, micro, exo, or macro level. Tanhan and Streck 2020 in step 5 provided information, for example, time, place, food, about a contextually appropriate, free and humble community dinner with the OPV exhibition open to all and ask the participants anonymously whether they plan to attend to come with an average number of attendees or not. So these are the 5 steps for identifying the facilitators.
Yes.
It is the example of one story which has been already explained by Tanhan also, so I can also read it out.
No, I think we don't need to, just as a reminder, because we already gone through it and we know that the time is limited. Also, like as the Professor Naved talk about it, so step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And if you are research and you want to give some more information or ask some other question, then step 5 will be here. Yes, and if you have missed that part, then you can, when we upload to the YouTube, then you can watch, because we have gone through the story. Yes, and again, this is a story from a participant who said, what is the most important barrier for my mental health and during COVID-19? Again, you can see step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So here we are going to talk about participating OPV through 5 steps. And now we have addressed the main facilitators and now our support systems. Now the most important barrier concern, how we are addressing the most important barrier concern through OPV. So I think Emel was interested in these slides, if she's here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emel. Sorry, I was late. I'm not sure if you introduced me, Ahmet, but I would like to introduce myself first, and I will explain the barrier and concerns. So, my name is Emel Genç. I'm an assistant professor in Batra University at Psychology Department. I also work with Ahmet, Dr. Tanhan. And today I'm going to present barriers. As we listen from Naved, did I say correctly, Naved Iqbal? So he explained
yes.
it. Sorry, I didn't know your name. Just read the. Anyways, so he explained the facilitators. Actually, barriers also, like the facilitators, we ask the same questions, but there's difference. So for the barriers, we ask the concerns, issues, problems that you come to your mind. Actually, I'm not going to read the slides, so you can already read the slides, but I would like to share my experience. I also conduct OPV study with people who are in a relationship. So I ask them, we ask them how COVID pandemic affect your relationship, and then we ask the facilitators and barriers that affect their relationship. So for the barriers, we ask them, the factors that damage your relationship. So we can take these factors as barriers. So as the first step, we ask them, when you think your relationship during the pandemic, what was the most difficult part, or what made your relationship difficult? And then we ask them to list these barriers, these factors, make a list. And then we ask them, what was the most important barriers or issues that really make your relationship difficult or damaged, do you think? And then we ask them, so select just one, which was the most important for you. And then we ask them, can we go to next slide?
Yes.
We ask the second step, choose a picture or photo that represent these barriers. So we gave some time, and then they select a photo or picture, and then we ask them, there might be a lot of pictures, but we are asking only one. Also, we kindly ask them, please don't select any pictures that reflect your face or anybody's face, because of some ethical reason. We didn't want them to select these pictures. even if they select these pictures, we cover them because we work on relationship, and most participants, they want to show their loved ones. So it was kind of handicap for us. We have to kind of eliminate these pictures, and then I had to recontact with them and ask them to change their pictures. By the way, I would like to say that for my study, we use Google Form. We did online, but in my experience, it was not fruitful. It was not benefit for us, because when I talk them face to face or when I talk them over the phone, they understand step much better. Because there is a list. Okay, there are 5 steps, so they can read or they can watch the video or they can ask the researcher if they don't understand, but they didn't do that. They just select the pictures or something, but some of them, they didn't answer some questions. So I will talk about that too, but it's my experience when I talk them directly and explain each step, each acronyms, that makes sense for them, and then they give me more data, more story. So even though we use Google Form, as I said, I connect with them. I try to reach them. I explain them, and I help them to select pictures, or I help them. I explain the questions. So I think that's better. So, anyways, after they select the pictures, we move to next step. I ask them write their stories. So for their story, there are some certain questions that help them to go deeper and that help them to express their feelings, their thoughts, their experience. So we use short acronym. Ahmet and Dr. Iqbal, they already explained short acronym. So I will not go through this short acronym. But if you like, I can read.
So maybe briefly, like S stands for C, H stands for happening here.
Okay, we ask them when you see your pictures or photo, what do you see in this picture? And then we ask them, when you look at this picture, what's happening in this picture? So H stands for happening. And then O, we ask them, what does that relate to your life? Our life as a person or community. But for my study, I ask their relationships. So what does that relate to your life as your relationship, as your partner, as a partner, or as a family member? So I want them to think the question within the family or within the relationship, not just person. And then W refers to what is that constitutes or creates the barrier and creates the problem. And then E stands for experience. So what did you experience? What did you feel? What did you think? Or what did you, what was the sensation or behavior? We ask them. And then D stands for do about it. So what can we as a professional or your peers or university or authorities, what they can do for this issue, for this problem, we ask them. So then we ask them to write down, so that make their story. And also I emphasize that please don't just answer the question. Instead of try to make a story, so we can see your story as a whole instead of just read an answer. So I prefer to read a story so that it will be more make sense for us. So next slide. So step 4. Identifying at least one or most three themes based on your story. Again, based on my experience, participants who I talk with them, they kind of hesitate to find the most important theme or metaphor. I helped them and I asked them, instead of thinking metaphor, what is the main idea of this story? So, or keywords, what was the keywords for you? So that helped them to find the theme or metaphor. This step was important because based on their identifying theme, we kind of use this theme as our result. Also, that helped to list our theme. So I think that this is one of the most important steps for OPV study.
Yes.
And step 5. This is the last step for barriers. At the end of the study, we ask them their email address because we let them know that we can contact with you, so we can ask some specific question based on OPV, or if you want, we can. We can give the study results after we are done with the study. After we are done with the analysis part, so you can check your answers and you can see the other people's responses. Also, we ask them their email because we can ask them if they like to volunteer or become a partner with us for the future research. Also, we can provide information about exhibition with humble community dinner event or whatever. So yes, step 5 is just about that. There is an example, but I'm not going to read because Dr. Tanhan, he already explained.
Yeah,
yes.
we already gone through this before you joined us to really demystify OPV, to really give some concrete examples. So again, as Emel also explained, as you can see, step 1, kind of a free association. Step 2, focusing a little more on one or more concepts. And so step 3, giving their story about the most important barrier. And then step 4, coming with the theme or metaphor or a few keywords, summary words, as Emel really underscored that this step 4 is very important for us to really protect their voice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think this was, again, a barrier one to really remind.
Step 4 also makes our job is easy because they already identifying their theme, so we don't have to rewrite or rephrase their theme because we just use their voice.
Yeah,
so I like this step.
Yeah, and actually it is more easy, it's more fun, it is more reliable, valid, and also protecting the voice of the participant. And I think except for Kavita, the rest of the speakers on the panel are coming from a mental health perspective, and Kavita is also very working with mental health providers, and she is stressing this topic very well. But to protect the voice and the perspective, the experience of participant is very critical in Photovoice and traditional Photovoice. But when we look at the OPV, we took a few steps further to really protect their name as much as possible. And it is easier, it is more fun, it's more protective and more doable as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Emel, anything else for the moment you want to add?
No, thank you. We are still waiting response from the reviewers, so we submit our paper. Once it's published, I will share the results. Okay, yeah. And at the beginning, actually, I introduced you and provided your Google Scholar account and also your research key. So hopefully anyone is watching this panel, they can reach out to you because you are focusing on relationship and marriage and the family therapy. We are looking forward to that paper. And Emel said that we are at step 5, for example. She asked some questions and asked for the email. So the email was optional.
as much as I remember your study, because I also checked that study, and so in OPV, we really want to collaborate with people, with the participants. So if a participant will say, okay, you get my voice, my perspective, but what's going to happen and how I can contribute or how I can connect with you and with the larger picture of what's happening, then if you ask their email or if you say you can be a partner, because in OPV, we really stress a lot collaborating with the participants, and Tahani is going to talk about this from a theoretical framework perspective. So yes, this is very critical. So let's move forward then. Here is the theoretical framework. I think Tahani is going to talk about this.
I will, and I'm not going to go too much into detail, minding just thinking of the time and making sure we get into data analysis. So when we think of the theoretical framework that these studies are taking, the research can benefit from the following theory and perspective and approaches: ecological system theory, community-based participatory research, social advocacy, and allied development. And when you think of ecological systems, you're thinking more of environmental factors versus individual. And when we think of community-based, we'll kind of talk about the benefits, but you're talking about partnerships. How are our participants more partners versus kind of build that relationship? But we can go down to the next slide and we'll talk about the benefits. Okay, so what happens after your OPV participation? The researcher and the volunteer partners as a team, I think that's the key thing here, underline, collaborate throughout the process to facilitate the participation. And two, the team analyzes the data and puts the results together in a more organized way so others can see the results from the main themes. And moving on, the team shares the results with the participants and other key people and institutions through one, face-to-face or an exhibit, and two, online avenues, live exhibit, community meetings, emails, and C, scientific avenues, which can include conferences, academic and non-academic papers, local, national, live press media. Moving on, the team can also meet with three main purposes, as we've addressed in the first slides, is that the most important facilitators support, strengthen barriers, concern, issue in people's lives from their own perspective in an innovative and creative way. And then moving on to advocating with team and others interested in this study to enhance facilitator support. Okay. I don't know why the bottom is.
Oops,
Yep.
sorry.
I'm not sure why the bottom. Okay.
And
we can
the
move on to the next slide. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide.
Mm-hmm. The bottom one, the one is talking about to address the barriers as we have addressed the facilitator.
Yeah, thank you. So what are some advantages? There's some important advantages compared to traditional Photovoice and some other qualitative techniques. So because you can utilize OPV during difficult times, especially during the pandemic, conflict where there's lack of safety, when it is relatively difficult to get out and to meet face-to-face. And we know this from the pandemic, and that, using online is more feasible and safe to reach out to as many people and diverse groups, especially to disempowered, silenced, or disprivileged, discriminated, or marginalized populations. This method tends to provide more access to those individuals, and to protect confidentiality for the ones, especially volunteer participants who want to be public and advocate publicly with researchers and other partners. Face-to-face or online participation to share the data much easier in print or online to many people and institutions, and to work with people with contagious biological or psychological issues. And here are some examples on the slide. And to activate people's multiple senses, include basic 5 senses, vision, touching, and others, and to understand people's most facilitator and barriers from their own perspective, owing to OPV's creative and innovative rather than traditional approaches. If you want to move on. Okay, so what are some advantages? Here's I would say my key area is CBPR. We can't even access these populations if we don't take a community-based approach. Community-based approaches, especially when we say CBPR, it builds trust, rapport, and relationships in a culturally responsive manner. We build that trust through looking at issues that are a priority to our partners and participants versus our own lens, and then identifying community needs, determining that are priority to the community versus just going into the literature and identifying it that way. That's more of a traditional approach. And then recognizing and attending physical, mental, and social well-being of a community. And then hopefully, we hope that the results can inform policies, strengthen communities, and reduce mental health or health disparities.
And for more information about that, people can look at Tahani's research kit. She is doing a lot of work on CBPR, as we have cited here as well. So yeah, I strongly recommend you to look at her research around CBPR, because it's very critical for OPV and also for many aspects. Really, nowadays, the researchers are getting narrowed, and they forget about collaborating with the communities, which is very critical for us. And we know the more psychiatry and psychology and counseling world is moving toward a community psychiatry, a community psychology, a community counseling, because with individuals, you can move very little, to be honest, but with community, you can do much more and much more effective.
Thank you.
Okay, data analysis. I think Kavita was into it, if she's here.
Yes, yes, Emma, thank you. Thank you, everyone, all speakers who preceded me and helped us to understand the methodology of OPV. So I'm going to walk you through the steps that we have taken, and I will provide some snapshots of the example research that I'm going to show. So OPV researchers, they have used online interpretive phenomenological analysis, and I'm going to use acronym in my future slides, OIPA. So once the participation is completed, we followed the following steps. For example, step 1, checking photos and captions for missing information. Then step 2, which is checking photos, caption, and themes or metaphors for confidentiality. Step 3, classifying themes of facilitators or support stories. And step 4 was classifying the themes of concern and barriers. And the step 5, if there were any questions in step 5 explained above in OPV participation process, and we analyzed the data. Next slide, please. So first of all, as I'm not sure if I'm saying the name right.
Yes,
Tanhani, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she talked a little bit about traditional research methodology. So how OPV analysis differs from traditional research methodology. So in traditional research methods, data collection and analysis are two distinct parts of the research. However, in case of OPV, borders between these two aspects are fuzzy. So data analysis in Photovoice can be participatory analysis, wherein participants assume the role of co-researchers, and non-participatory analysis, wherein researchers apply computer-assisted models or techniques and then compare and combine the results with those of participatory analysis. So two reappearing issues that have repeatedly been related to data analysis in OPV studies. The first focus on the lack of clarity in explaining the data analysis process, which I aim to explain, but I'm not sure how much it will be clear to all of you. And the second one is the analysis of OPV is not convergent on a single method. In fact, various strategies can be applied to draw an iterative and inductive cycle. Traditionally, traditional Photovoice researchers have preferred versions of like content analysis, thematic analysis, and narrative approaches. Now, the second issue is the status of the picture in data analysis. We can use picture as a part of data analysis, or can use picture as a visual support. In our case, we were not able to see the pictures. Like I was not able to see the pictures. I was only able to see the link provided, but that link was not active for some reason. So in our cases, analysis of visual data was problematic. So what we did, we used the stories as a surrogate measure or surrogate source for the pictures. And particularly the rich stories that followed the short acronym. And after the completion of data collection, once I got all the sheets, I performed data cleaning just to identify the missing values or missing data. So as a next step.
Yeah, and Kavita, do you mind if I add a few things?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for this data analysis point. And yes, there is no one way to do the analysis for OPV. We are open to the researchers, but so far, OIPA has been used in many cases. And we are conducting a research with Kavita and Naved from India using OPV. And we had some issues with our visual photos. And so far about 6-7 papers came out on OPV, and none of them analyzed the photos. None of them. But Nazlı is here, and she's going to talk about her experience. She is the first OPV researcher who did the analysis on photos and classified and clustered the photos as well. So I think OPV is moving forward.
Good. That's good to know, Emma. Yeah. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
So can you please advance to the next slide?
Yes.
Thank you. Just I want to touch like ethical aspect of the study, and I'm really fascinated by having two questions in the survey. So there were two consent questions in the survey, one in the beginning, another at the end. And the second consent question, actually, if participants provided approval for the second consent question, it took precedence over the first. So this also helped us to see if the participant changed their mind during the entire course of the survey. And the rich stories, if we found in our data, were the best candidates for the inclusion. Other important aspect is the template tables, which were provided by Dr. Ahmet Tanhan to us, just to report findings in a consistent manner, and that was super helpful. And data were completely anonymous. As all other presenters before me, they talked about the confidentiality and how we preserve the anonymity of the participants to make it de-identified. So after data cleaning, we conducted line-by-line analysis of the participants' meanings and understandings of their lived experiences. We then identified emergent themes and searched for connections across theme for reporting. So we use frequencies and proportions for categorical variables, and we went a little step ahead to indicate means and standard deviations for continuous variables. And I'm going to walk you through that in my prospective slides. So as an example, I'm going to show you some snapshots of preliminary results from our Russia-based sample. So here are some snapshots, and these tables, I apologize, these have not been converted into publication variety tables. I just took like from my raw data and whatever aggregate measures I was getting. Mm-hmm. So please pardon me if these are difficult to read. But if you see these are the table, this is a table 1, the demographic characteristics of the respondents, which is typically like in every manuscript, this is table 1, basically to describe the sample characteristics. So we started with the number 79. And we also provide the number, like how many participants basically they provided consent in the beginning, which were 74. And then at the end of the study, still those participants gave us approval, which is the final and valid consent. So you can see I have indicated that by red arrow. And then the mean age of the participants was 19.8 plus minus 4.71. And it was normally distributed data, the age that I'm showing here. As I already indicated that we used mean and standard deviation for the continuous normally distributed variables. And then sex ratio and how many different cities, how many different nationalities. If you notice, we are reporting number as well as proportions here for all the categories that are listing. So basically this sample was predominantly students, I guess. That's why if you see the mean age of the participants is like 19.8 years. And as I said, predominantly these were students. Next slide, please.
And yeah, Kavita, I totally forgot that for this study, you have talking about the Russia study. Good to know.
Yes. Okay, so this is the example, like second table that we had in our result, which is descriptive for some contextual or related to mental health conditions during the pandemic. Still, yes, the final sample size was 74. And actually, these questions were asked on the scale of 0 to 100. So participants, for example, if we ask them, please rate your score, like how much you faced economic difficulties and which spiritual religion tradition you identify with, identify how much you identify yourself as a spiritual person. So they actually gave a score between 0 to 100. So the best approach that we could take is to report the mean scores as well as the standard deviation, so which you can see here in the statistic column on the right-hand side. And now we move to the next table, which is typically table 5 in our manuscript, but I'm still working on the data. That's why I just number it table 3, which is attribution of the facilitators and barrier theme to EST level, which other speakers have been talking about. So 5 levels that we looked at, depending upon the facilitator and barriers, whether it's individual, intrapsychic, microsystem or exosystem, macrosystem, or all together. And you can see we have reported the percentages along with the counts or frequencies. So we have a footnote here in which we are saying out of 74, 73 participants, they actually attributed the factors to more than one level. So this is n is equal to 73, which it means. The next slide. So these are the snapshot of the barrier themes. So you can see we have like very important themes that came up during our analysis. The first was the challenges of online education and learning. The second one was, can you just zoom it in, Ahmed? Sorry, I can't read it for some reason.
I can, if you want, I can read them.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Yeah, the second main theme is psychopathology and unenjoyable feelings towards bodily sensations. And 33 participants talk about that, which is about 45% of the total participants. And the third one is, and you can see under the second main theme, there is mental health issues, non-recognition of activities by relatives and friends, boredom, anxiety, stress, monotony, laziness, slow life, high pressure, etc. And the third main theme is connection, internet problems, and this is the barrier tips. And I think we have forgotten, or we don't have the fourth main theme here, but that's okay. The fifth main theme is economic collapse, financial incapability, difficulty. The sixth one is home environment, issues with home environment, like no place to study in the house, living in rural areas, so there is no internet, or issues with computer, with phone, or computer games getting their attention, so they are not focusing on their study. And the seventh main theme is effects of too much internet and electronic use. And the eighth one is fear. And as Kavita said, she's still working on it. So she may collapse some of these themes or may not. So yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So we are thinking to collapse some of the categories. And two things I just need to point out here. So if you notice, corresponding to each sub-theme, like under each, the red fonted areas, if you notice, we have some number written in the parentheses. So those numbers are like how many participants said the same thing. So we just went a little bit ahead to just for the sake of transparency and granularity, we provided those numbers too, like how many participants, how many times it was repetitive. So that those numbers indicate participant responses. And if you see the footnote of the table, a very important thing is we combine the themes represented under 3% of total number following the completing the analysis as Tanhan 2020 suggested. So we followed this rule in order to make it a standalone theme. That should be under 3% of total number.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide.
And you know, Kavita, this is awesome when you say like the number in the parentheses. It's very helpful, really. For example, we had an OPD paper and a European researcher reached out to us and she said that theme, I think it was emotion, emotion as a barrier. And she was very into it, emotions in education and how it affects people's education for online education. And she asked how many people talk about this emotion, because emotion was under another larger main theme. And we did not give an answer. We had to, and I was not the main researcher for that study. So we asked the main researchers to go back to his data. But he was very busy. And I guess when I checked with him a few weeks later, he said he still did not go back because he has to go back and find that number, you know. So this is really great. And for future researchers, highly recommended really to do this.
Thank you.
Yes, I think we are done with your section, Kavita. If you want to do anything else.
No, I'm good. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
And I think Nazlı is among us, and she's the youngest among us, a new researcher stepping into academia step by step. Nazlı, you want to talk about implications in research?
I will go on with implications. My research was about women's sexuality, and it was the first study that analyzed all submitted photos in a OPV study. And we found photos to be very effective. For example, we found most of the participants explained sexuality with photos from nature. And then we saw that we started analyzing photos. And also using OPV with communities and individuals with less voice and less addressed issues like sexuality, women issues, and poverty. And using OPV with people under 18, because all OPV studies have been done with people at the age of 18 or over. And also using OPV, also improving OPV to make it easy to participate, and maybe way can be improving an application.
Yes, for Nazlı study, she conducted an OPV, and actually it's also the first thesis using OPV. For her master in science in clinical psychology, she examined how women are describing or perceiving what is their phenomena about women's sexuality, what sexuality means to them. And it was a very unique, very good and needed study, especially when you are thinking about Turkey. It's not well addressed and not well spoken. So good job for that Nazlı, and yeah, I think we had, I was also following that study, and it was not very easy to really explain OPV because it's very new, very few people know that. So I think that's really a good idea to work on it to make it easy, and because it should be doable. It is doable, but more effort need to go into it. Yeah.
Thank you. And also other implications in education. Educators can use OPV to explain a topic or understand how the students understand a course topic as feedback, or using OPV to enhance school climate and quality. And in mental health providers can use OPV in therapy to explore feelings, bodily sensations, thoughts, and explore a topic more. And using OPV to show the clients how they can use OPV in their daily life as a way to writing from an artful perspective. Also, using OPV to let the clients find their themes, metaphors, or the most important keywords for an event, topic, or station. In active social advocacy, OPV users need to give more attention to active social advocacy, like finding new ways how to enhance active social advocacy on online platforms.
Yeah. And now, actually, you have talked about implication in education, and a few papers are being written, actually. For example, a team is working how college students are identifying school climate, school belonging, college belonging during COVID-19. And another paper actually came out about a few months ago on how students in special education department are identifying special education. Specific learning disorder. So the researcher was specifically focusing on how college students in a special education department are describing specific learning disorder. So it seems like more studies are focusing on more specific topics, which is really good. And yes, I totally agree, because like OPV has been more common in mental health and rarely in education. So we need more about this. Yes. Anything else the rest of the team want to add to the implication? Professor Naved, Kavita, Tahani, and Emel. I think this is kind of one of our last slides. Anything that you want to say from our study? I know because we are all working on OPV in research. So anything comes to your mind that you say like this implication can be very effective in terms of implications in research or implications in education, mental health, social advocacy?
So if you allow me,
yes, please.
Ahmed, I think we must also share our experiences doing OPV. So I think it is also linked to implication. I think it has implication in all the area, whether it is social advocacy, education, or mental health. But we must also discuss our experiences and our underlying assumptions. Because when we say the fifth step in this, so that fifth step is related to advocacy. And if we see all the research tradition in behavioral or social sciences and where we can identify ourselves. So advocacy part, I think it is related to the transformative approach to the doing social science research or this type of research. Because what is the problem of other approaches? They do not hear the voices of the disadvantaged group, especially the marginalized group. So that approach is known as transformative approach. And many researchers have talked about it. So by this, we can give a voice to the marginalized group and we can empower them. So it is the first thing. So if we are not using the fifth step, so we can identify ourselves, I think, with interpretive and social constructive approach. No doubt, we also use the frequency data, which is the part of what we call positivist approach. But usually, we are not very much interested in that. So in which we are interested, the story of the participant.
Yes.
So I think we need to that. some experience while doing this I would like to share with you, if you allow me.
Yes, yes, please.
Because most of the studies during this pandemic, I have conducted online. I have collected data online by sharing the link. So it is my first experience. No doubt this OPV method is very useful, but simply share the link, we cannot do very good study. We will get very few responses. Here,
Yes.
what we need, at least someone who can explain. Because what is the reason? Because unlike other approach, I mean to say other method of data collection, here in the beginning, instructions are given in 3 different forms.
Yes.
Written form, audio form, and this video form. So here some of the participants, including those who were conducting the study, they got confused and they thought in the beginning that it's very lengthy study.
Yeah.
We must also keep in the mind, some participants can spare as much time as they can. Other participants, they have very limited time. They don't want to spend time on such type of survey. When
Yes.
they see that it is very lengthy, so they lose interest and they do not want to complete it. It is the first thing which I have found. So I think we need to do something. If someone is explaining, then it becomes very easier. Very important thing about this, what I have found.
Yes.
The participants who were reluctant in the beginning, they were thinking, no, it's very lengthy. But when they have uploaded their photos, they have reflected on their experiences, they had a new kind of understanding. They said that it was a good method for self-discovery, that
Yes.
they have never given to thought, which were the facilitators, which were the barriers. But once they have analyzed based on that, so they shared with me that it helped them a lot personally. Yes, there is one problem. I have found that younger generation, they are very quick in doing clicking photo and uploading it. Some people who are of older generation and those who are not techno savvy. So some of them, they were very few, they have reported, they have problem uploading that. But by and large, for most of the participants, it was very wonderful experience. And it was a tool for self-discovery. So I think we can use it, but we need to refine something. So
Yes.
especially the instruction part, either in the beginning someone explain, or we make it something. I mean to say, we need to do something here.
Yes.
Otherwise, some participants will lose interest. Overall, it was a wonderful experience conducting it. Although I was doing interpretive phenomenological analysis, and almost 6 papers I have already published, one with the Jonathan Smith, who was the founder of that. Here
Wow.
also, there is a slight different approach also, including photos. So that is the most important part. Because with the help of photo, we are doing something. So it was my experience. So wonderful. Overall, it was a wonderful experience doing it.
That sounds great. Yes, and it has been a common issue, Professor Naved, that like let's make it more easy, more doable, more practical. Among these our speakers, as the panel speakers, and also the other researchers who have used OPV, yes, it has been an issue that we need to acknowledge and need to reflect on it to move forward more effectively. I agree. Yeah. Any other ideas about implications, or any you want to share about your experience?
Ahmed, I would totally agree with Dr. Naved, because when I was doing data analysis, there were a lot of missing entries.
Yes.
That is likely that that is because of the survey fatigue for the participants. And in future, if you need any assistance to make it concise, without losing any information, I will be happy to help, because I closely looked at the survey and I do think there are some parts which can be easily eliminated from the perspective of participants. And I know this survey was created to inform the researchers as well as participants. And that was the double-pronged approach that you have taken, which is really good. But from the participant perspective, I do totally agree that we need to shorten it, or we need to just target it towards the participants so that there is no survey fatigue.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you are so right, because it is the first time we are approaching and reaching out to so many participants, so many researchers for the moment. Like we have 67 researchers from different 15 to 20 countries. So yes, and hopefully at least now we have around 65 researchers to move forward, and to conduct more doable and more simple, straightforward with OPV. And hopefully now we have at least some people who know how to participate, so it's going to be easier and easier step by step. But we will stay in touch for the further studies and collaboration and how to make it more simple and straightforward.
Thank you.
Quick CBPR, even prior to conducting an OPV, maybe future research implications could consider how do we come up with research topics or questions collaboratively.
Yeah, and actually, Tahani, you touched a very important point. Really, what is the main common issue is how to participate, right? So if we really go from the beginning, acting with the community, acting with the key people, acting with the participants, even to decide which topic we need to address, because it's really a very important method, and it requires time, it requires professional perspectives. So if we want to really touch the life and create a more livable and a more meaningful life for all, then we really need to say which topic we need to address, because we have limited energy, limited resources. And I believe if we move from there, moving with community, as you have just said, from a CBPR perspective, probably then we will have more people who can ally with us and who can be helpful to reach out to more people as well.
Ahmed, I have one quick question for you and for all the team members. So in the survey, there are a couple of questions in the last part of the survey related to COVID-19. I think the question I'm indicating here is where you ask them the rating, scale from 0 to 100. So I just wanted to ask, what was the rationale of developing those questions? In other words, did we use any validated tool or any validated questionnaire for those questions, or did we come up with the question by ourselves?
Yeah, with ourselves and with some participants from my university who are my clinic assistants, college students. So they would offer some questions. And for the scaling, I was about to use 0 to 5 or 0 to 4 or 1 to 5. But then I came across a study from UK, and they were focusing on metacognitive therapy. And when I talked to them, why you are using all the scales from 0 to 100, they said they want to be more reliable and valid and to the point and be more sensitive to capture the experience. Which is very right. So we decided to go for 0 to 100. But yes, for the questions, we decided those questions. And some of them came from the literature review. Some of them came from the participants, from my CBPR team for my first study.
So you have published 6 to 7 papers. In your experience, did reviewers come back to ask you about the validation or psychometric properties?
No, we have not published so far 6, 7. 6, 7 are coming from. They are in the process.
Okay.
Some of them have been accepted soon. I think in a few days, one is gonna be out. But so far, I think 4 papers are out, but in none of them we have used these questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And yes, the reviewers are asking whether you have taken these questions from a scale perspective or not, and we say no. These are just contextual questions that we have used. And you know, Kavita, in our studies in general, we let the people to skip that section as well. They were optional because we really did not want to force them to say, yes, I have COVID-19, or yes, I live with my family, or etc. So most of the contested questions were optional, like spirituality, religiosity, or whether you have a computer or not. They were optional because we know that the story by itself was quite long.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or implications that we want to add? No? Then I think we can end here. And thank you so much for your time. And we will stay in touch. Let me ask Hüseyin Hocam. Hüseyin Hocam, do you have any questions for us, or do you want to do anything else?
Yok hocam.
Tamam o zaman. Okay, then, dear friends, let's keep in touch and let's move forward to say how we can move forward with OPV and some other studies, hopefully.
Thank you,
It
everyone.
was nice meeting everyone online.
Okay, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much.